Hi guys, Patrick from Patrick and Friends Music Company here. Today we're going to dive deep into strumming patterns by learning the rhythm knowledge that goes into them. Now, if you haven't checked out the first strumming pattern video, where we just learned strumming patterns by ear, I suggest you check it out and there will be a link in the description below. Now, before we get started, I want to mention the Patrick and Friends Music Company Patreon. If you become a Patreon, you can get exclusive content, more instructional videos exclusive to Patreon, and also you can take advantage of virtual guitar lessons. Very exciting. I suggest you check it out. There will be another link in the description below. Okay, so we're gonna get pretty technical in this video. And I wanna mention that this method of learning isn't for everybody. Some people learn better by ear, some people learn better visually, but I don't want you to give up if this gets a little confusing. Because a lot of times as you go on musically and learn more about guitar, what will happen is you'll start to understand the things that you learned a while ago. It happens to me all the time where I'll learn something, be way over my head, and then a year later, I'll be like, ah, that's what they meant. So, don't give up if this stuff is a little confusing. I'm sure you'll get it as time will go on. So our first concept we gotta understand is our time signature. Now, as you see, it is a number on top of a number, 4 on top of 4. And what this means is the amount of beats in our measure. Now, we're only gonna focus on the top note. We're not gonna worry about the bottom note because it can get very technical. So since it says 4, that means we have 4 beats in our measure. And more importantly, it means that we count to 4. So what's gonna happen is each measure, as we repeat it, it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now, this may already be a little confusing, but I'm sure you actually know more about this than you think. Most songs are actually in this time signature. So if you go to your favorite rock or pop song, or honestly a lot of different genres, and you try counting along, 1, 2, 3, 4, more than likely, they will actually follow that count. And since you hear this all the time, you actually probably feel it even better. The other instance where you might actually hear this is when a drummer counts off a song, or anybody, but a lot of times drummers will click their sticks together and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they'll actually play that beat, keeping that 1, 2, 3, 4 pulse or rhythm throughout the song. So I think if you sort of listen for that, you'll actually understand this more than trying to, get all the technical aspects of it. Okay, so we're going to go into 4 different types of rhythmic values in this video. We have whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. Now, they all look different and they all represent a different amount of beats they get held for. But what you really have to understand is what they do, what they mean, and more importantly, what they sound like. Because if you can hear it, then you can play it. But you don't need to worry about, memorizing, flashcards or anything like that. You'll memorize it as you go along and learn more and more. So we're actually going to start with our whole notes. And like the name might imply, it gets the whole measure. So that means since we're counting the 4, it's going to get 4 beats. Now, in this video, I'm going to use my 1-finger G major chord, but you can use any chord or any note to get this down. So what it's going to sound like is when I hit my G major chord, I'm going to count to 4. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you notice how I hit it on beat 1, and then I counted to 4 and held it the entire time. So it gets the entire measure. So that represents our whole note. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna play 2 whole notes in a row. I'm gonna count off 4 beats, just like our drummer, and then we're gonna come in and play 2 measures of whole notes. Ready? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Let's move on to our half notes. So our half notes are half of our whole notes, like the name says, right? Or half a measure. So since our measure gets 4 beats, our half notes are going to get 2 beats. So what it's going to sound like is you're going to hit it on beat 1 and count to beat 2. So 1, 2. Now, to fill up an entire measure, we need to get to 4, right? So we need 2 half notes in the measure. Now, a mistake a lot of people make is that you can't just count 1, 2, 1, 2. right? What you actually have to do is count to 4. So our first half note is going to be on beat 1 and held for beat 2. And our second half note is going to be on beat 3 and held for beat 4. So together that sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so what we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to count off 4 beats and try to play 2 full measures of half notes. That means 2 half notes per measure, 2 times. So 4 half notes in total. Ready? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Now, let's look at our quarter notes. Our quarter notes, like you may guess, break down our half notes in half. And if you do all that complicated math, it means they each get 1 beat. So that means if I play my chord and count 1, it's a quarter note. And so now every beat we count, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, is going to get a chord or a note. So if we play that together, it's going to sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. And just like half notes, you can't count 1, 1, 1, 1, because remember, we always have to count up to 4. So now we're going to try the same thing. We're going to count off 4 beats and play 2 measures of quarter notes in a row. And if you count that up, it's going to be 8 quarter notes in a row. Ready? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. Okay, so last but definitely not least are eighth notes. Now you may be wondering right off the bat, 8 beats, 8 notes, what's going on here? Yes, they can be a little complicated to understand. So to understand them, what we're going to do is we're going to break them down. So our eighth notes are going to get grouped into 2. So 2 eighth notes at a time. And what's going to happen is we're going to break up each beat, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, into 2 equal parts. So they kind of get split in half. And the first half is our 1, or our first eighth note, and the second half is our and, or our second eighth note. And this applies for each beat. So 2 and, beat 2, 3 and for beat 3, and 4 and for beat 4. So why this is important is because they actually sound a little quicker than quarter notes, right? Because 2 eighth notes, because they're split into 2, is equal to 1 quarter note. Let me clap this out and count our eighth notes so you guys can sort of hear it. So I'm going to clap 4 beats and count while I go. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you see how the eighth notes are on the off beats? They're in between my claps. And that's what makes eighth notes so special. Now, they're really special for our strumming patterns because they start incorporating our up strums. Now, up until now, I've just been strumming down, but our eighth notes is where we sort of incorporate sort of the rhythm and the strumming together. So whenever we go down or down strum, it's going to be on our beats or on our numbers. And then our ands, like I mentioned, our off beats are going to be our up strums. So for instance, our 1 end is going to be down, up. 2 end is going to be down, up. 3 end is going to be down, up. And 4 end is going to be down, up. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is try to put this together and count so you guys can sort of hear it. Ready? So we're going to do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Or down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Awesome. So now we're going to try is count off 4 beats, play 2 measures of eighth notes in a row, and if you're counting, that's 8 eighth notes or 16 eighth notes altogether. So let's try it. Count off 4 beats. We got it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. And. Awesome. So the last thing we're going to do is try to put it all together. Now this is gonna be a little complex, but I think you got it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do one measure of each type of rhythm. So our first measure is gonna be a whole note. And remember, we only need one of those because it gets the whole measure for 4 beats. Second measure is gonna be 2 half notes to fill up the measure. Third measure is gonna be 4 quarter notes. And the last measure is gonna be 8 eighth notes. So we're gonna take this a little bit slower. Let's count off 4 beats and try it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Awesome. So that was a lot of information. Now, what you may be wondering is, how does this apply to what I want to do? So what we're going to do in our next video is take this rhythm knowledge we learned and actually apply it to our strumming patterns. So we're going to understand the rhythm that goes behind them. And we're actually going to use some of the strumming patterns from our first strumming pattern video. Now, this is really important because not all strumming patterns just have one rhythm. Not all of them are quarter notes, eighth notes, whole notes. They mix together the rhythms within the strumming pattern. So make sure you check out that video. Link will be in the description below. Also check out the Patrick and Friends Music Company Patreon. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Happy practicing.